Hello BookTube, this is Weekly Reads. I've had a rather busy reading week this week and a bit disappointing. Let's get going. So I started the reading week with Poems 1962 to 2012 by Louise Gluck. Louise Gluck won the 2020 Nobel Prize in Literature, and I picked this collection up shortly thereafter, and I read it, and at the time I really enjoyed it. It was quite good, although I did read it over the course of a reading week, the work week. This time around, I read it over the course of Saturday and a part of Sunday, and maybe reading so much Louise Gluck all in one go might not have been the best idea. I still enjoyed the poems. They're still largely very, very good, but I think too much. The ergonomics is defeating me here. Okay, anyway. So after I finished Poems 1962 to 2012, I went and had another go at Collapse, The Fall of the Soviet Union by Vladislav M. Zubok. This is the history of, or the story of, the disintegration of the Soviet Union. And as I've mentioned several times in the past few weeks, past week or so, the book is incredibly detailed and dense. This is likely to be the definitive history of the fall of the Soviet Union. But it is also dull and boring. And I read it, or I started it last week in preparation for the Kendall Prize. The Kendall Prize is a literary prize that focuses on history writing, and Collapse is one of the three finalists. And it's just boring, and so I dipped back in. I read some of it last week and got about 100 pages in, and I was bored, so I set it aside so I could get to some of the other Kendall Prize shortlisted works. And of course, I don't know if it was like burnt out or just I didn't get on with this book, but I came back to it and I finished off the chapter that I had bailed on. And I think maybe I'll come back to it, or I'll come back to it in maybe a year or so and see if my opinion changes. But yeah, I did not get on with this at all, sadly. So on Monday, the disappointments continued as I finally got around to The Laggard Queen of Minnesota by J. Ryan Stradal. This is a novel about two feuding sisters, Edith and Helen. Edith, the older sister, has spent most of her working life, or almost all of her working life, in the kitchen of a local nursing home, where she has claimed some fame for her pies. The younger sister, Helen, has taken a family inheritance, which somehow or other went straight all to her, and sort of invested that into a brewing business. Helen, as a teenager, had a taste of beer and loved it. Not necessarily, or at least I'm not entirely sure, whether or not that love turned into alcoholism, but it certainly went into the sort of love that you want to produce it. Helen has become a rather successful brewer of beer. The sisters have a Cold War until one day Edith's granddaughter Diane decides that she wants to get into the brewing business herself. I didn't make it too far into the book. It's I didn't like the style. I thought it was dull, and it didn't do anything for me. The interesting thing about the Lager Queen of Minnesota is why exactly it found its way into, or a copy found its way into my collection. So at the end of every year, Steve Donahue does a series of year's best and year's worst lists in the 16 or so genres that he reads, adding 2 for the worst fiction and worst nonfiction. And one of the lists that I'm always drawn to, that I'm always interested in, despite myself, is debut fiction. And in the 2019 list, rather high up on there, there was a novel called American Pop by Snowden Wright. It's a novel about a family of who made their wealth through soda manufacturing. And I became obsessed with that book in 2020, although I never did check it out from the library or buy it. I did eventually try an e-copy of it that I checked out from my library. Obviously, this was during the pandemic, and I didn't get on with it. But the cover, but something about American Pop and its cover, sort of, when I saw the cover of Lager Queen of Minnesota online, I was immediately drawn to it. And so some of that obsession passed to this novel. And also in 2020, with the pandemic going on and Amazon shifting a lot of its focus to essentials and concern about whether or not independent bookstores would be able to survive the pandemic, I decided to support some local independent bookstores by ordering some books from them. One of those was Book People, the storied independent bookstore in Austin, Texas. I also ordered some from 3 books from Fabled. Fabled is a relatively new independent bookstore in Waco, Texas. It opened in 2019, so that was, they were in definite danger of closing. Although of the 3 independent bookstores that I've shopped with, the one that actually seemed to have been the most in danger was Powell's, the storied independent bookstore in Portland. I still shop with both Book People and Powell's, not so much Fabled, even though they are the most local, the nearest to me, but that's because their shipping and handling is expensive. And I only bought 3 books from them. So I decided to eventually pick this one up as the 3rd book. But anyway, and it's been it's languished on my shelves for almost 2 years now. Well, yeah, about 2 years. So I finally got to it, and I didn't care for it. I really should try to, avoid literary fiction for a while, but anyway. So after the Lager Queen of Minnesota, I decided to do a Bell redemption of Somebody Loves You by Mona Arshi. This is I would say this is a kind of a prose poem novel, but I've never managed to get too far into it to actually figure out what the heck this book actually is or is about. I just know that after two bells, I don't like it. So after 2 disappointing attempts at novels, I decided to go for some poetry, 2 of which I hauled this week. First up is God of Nothingness by Mark Wunderlich. Mark Wunderlich is one of my favorite poets. I first encountered him about 20 years ago with his collection Voluntary Servitude, which I adore. God of Nothingness is equally as good. I absolutely love this collection. There are a number of really good poems like, let me see here. Oh yeah, that was pretty good. My Night with Jeffrey Dahmer was pretty good. Wunderlich, the first poem was here. The Beast of Bray Road was really good. Five Cold Stories, even though they're more prose poems. So yeah, this is a really, really good collection. And then to sort of sandwich the, to come between the two Wunderlichs, I decided to reread Hosts and Guests by Nate Klug. Nate Klug's a relatively new poet. This is his first collection that I've read, although he's written some other stuff, or published other collections, like a few though. So this is a reread, and I love this collection every much as I did the first time I read it. There's a number of great poems, particularly Pokemon Go people. It's great. Yeah. And finally, I got The Earth of Avails, again by Mark Wunderlich. This is the collection that immediately precedes Gods of Nothingness. God of Nothingness is his most recent collection. I have to say I'm a bit disappointed with this collection. I didn't care for it as much as I did either Voluntary Servitude or God of Nothingness. I think in part because these poems are more thematically coherent and related, and I don't think it quite came together. But anyway, but there were a few good poems in there too. So that's what I read this past week. What I am hoping to get to this reading week is, I have a box under my bed. Eventually to put some of my books in. Anyway, so this weekend I'm going to tackle again A People's Future of the United States, edited by Victor LaValle and John Joseph Adams. This is a anthology of science fiction stories inspired by Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States, which spawned a whole slew of people's histories of you name it. So I read this in, I think, early 2020, because I think it came out in 2019, and I didn't get on with it at that time, but I do want to come back to it. So I'll try it this weekend, and hopefully I have a better opinion of it, and if not, yeah. It is what it is. So on Monday, because I'm planning on finishing People's Future over the weekend, so I'll have something new on Monday, which is Halloween. I'm going to read 3 volumes of manga, hopefully. I'll start off with The 7 Deadly Sins, Volume 11 by Nakaba Suzuki. Again, The 7 Deadly Sins is a shonen manga series about a young princess named Elizabeth, whose adoptive father has been overthrown by an order of holy knights who have taken over the kingdom and are rather tyrannical. To stop the holy knights and restore her father, Princess Elizabeth goes in search of the 7 deadly sins, a different order of knighthood who a number of years earlier were accused of trying to overthrow the kingdom. Elizabeth finds the former leader of the 7 deadly sins, Melodius, and together they begin to recollect, to look for and find the other members of the 7 deadly sins. From where I've gotten, they've got quite a few of them left. There's Melodius, Diane, Ban, King, and Gauther. So there's for, wait. Yeah, there's 2 left. Math was never my strong suit. Anyway, so they're gathering them together and trying to fight the Holy Knights, who have a number of nefarious schemes going on. I've been enjoying the 7 Deadly Sins, and I'm looking forward to getting to volume 11. I'm also planning on reading 2 volumes of My Hero Academia by Kohei Horikoshi. This is volume 2. And volume 3. So My Hero Academia is inspired by American superhero comics. It's the story of a young man named Midoriya who is born without superpowers. One day he meets his superhero idol, All Might, and Midoriya's courage in the face of the greatest adversity. He has no powers. So what is he thinking going up against an actual supervillain? Inspires All Might to action to defeat that supervillain, but also to train Midoriya as a successor. And so All Might passes on his quirk, his superpower, called All for One. No, it's all one for all. So they're basically 2 quirks. One is the heroic one for all, and then there's the more villainous all for one. Anyway, so Midoriya gets the quirk and he's able to have superpowers and join the superhero school, which is basically where the story is because I'm only 1 volume in. But I'm looking for, I love that volume and I can't wait to get to those 2. And then on Tuesday, that's November 1st. So in Nonfiction November, a story booktube event in which participants read nonfiction in November. I'm planning on ideally reading only nonfiction in November, although there's always the possibility of a burnout, but let's hope not. So I'm going to start nonfiction November with Weavers, Scribes, and Kings, A New History of the Ancient Near East by Amanda H. Podany. I have a sweet tooth for Bronze Age history, which this will largely cover, although it will go up to the conquest of Alexander. But I am really looking forward to reading this and all of the other ancient histories I have on the docket, which should be coming in soon. So that's the plan. Anyway, so my booktube plans for next week. I'll try Monday to do a tag video. There's one that I saw today. That sounds very interesting. It's a Halloween candy tag. Although I'm disappointed at some of those candy choices. Although maybe might inspire Josh of Literary Gladiators to create a candy-centric book tag. Then on Tuesday, I might try to do another tag video. And then Wednesday, Thursday, I don't exactly know what I would want to do. Might try to make some videos, might try some discussion videos or haul videos as needed. Because I mean, I do have some books coming in. The last of the poetry collections that I've ordered should be coming in either tomorrow or Monday. I have a pre-order coming in on Tuesday, which I'll either do a late video then or hold that one over until Wednesday, and then I'm seriously contemplating going ahead and buying the final 9 copies of Fairy Tale by Hiro Mishima, so could probably haul them in. Not entirely sure. We'll see how things go. So anyway, booktube, that's all I've got for this week. Thank you. Have a great evening and weekend, and I will see you on Monday. So until then, thank you, BookTube, and stay safe.